I've been in this business for 12 years, and inventory's been an issue the whole time. The whole time. Every year, it's always an inventory issue. Yes, it is competitive out there, but the people you choose to work with, if you're a home buyer, the team you put around you, your realtor, your lender, those folks can make a big difference in your experience.
When interest rates are high, there's a lot of people that would like to buy a house are sitting on the sidelines. They're going like, okay, you know what? Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today. Today we have a very, very important guest in our little studio, our virtual studio. He is none other than Russell Rivera. So Russell's been in the mortgage brokering business for more than 10 years, and he's really different from most of the other brokers I know. And one of the things about him is that his grasp on technology. I mean, when I sat down with him the first half an hour, we were talking about crypto and blockchain and stuff like that, and how this is going to change the world and revolutionize a lot of stuff. But we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk a little bit, more down to earth and in good old Silicon Valley real estate fashion. I'm going to ask him about some of the macros that will affect Silicon Valley prices of real estate, whether it goes up, whether it comes down, whether it's a good time to take position, and basically, what would Russell do? Russell, thank you for joining me.
Thank you, Charlie. Nice to be here.
You have been in Silicon Valley for the better part of your life, right?
Correct. Yeah. I grew up here, moved away for a couple of years to try something different, came back because this is where everything happens.
Right. So I'm just going to jump into this. The Fed's announced today that they're probably not going to cut interest rates until May. So
Right.
What do you think this will do to affect prices of real estate? How the real estate market will move, not just in the US of A, but also in Silicon Valley more specifically. What are your thoughts on that?
So I think, a lot of sellers are hesitating on selling their property because of the higher mortgage rates. If they sell their house that maybe has no mortgage or maybe has a low mortgage rate that they got a few years back, do they really want to get into a 6 or 7% interest rate? So they've been holding off on selling until these rates come down to where it's more equitable for them. So I think, if we're not going to see a Fed rate reduction until May, then that's going to probably stifle a little bit of the inventory supply that we normally see in the spring until maybe summer. Obviously there's some seasonality to this business that typically after the Super Bowl we typically see an uptick in inventory. But if there's still inventory issues, then obviously that's going to affect prices. It's a simple supply and demand economic issue. Right? If there's no inventory, prices are higher. Therefore, it costs more to buy a home. So hopefully, by May, June, we start to see some of those reductions, and maybe that will affect mortgage rates, in a positive way, and hopefully an uptick in inventory, which means, maybe not such high prices as much as you might see with lower inventory.
Before I get to inventory, I'm going to ask you a very important question. So you said that, after Super Bowl, the uptake, the number of inventory should increase as previous trend have shown. But not every year do we get to see the Niners, yay, make it to the Super Bowl. So this is a little special. The question here is this, win or lose the Niners, will that have an impact on the inventory supply or the inventory of real estate in the Bay Area? Your thoughts on that?
I mean, it could, maybe people don't want to necessarily list their home until, later because they want to be in their home to watch the Super Bowl. And of
Right.
course,
The question here is if the Niners win or if the Niners lose,
win,
will there be an effect on the inventory?
oh man, that would be great. I don't know that that's going to directly influence inventory. But it's the Santa Clara Niners for all intents and purposes, and so San Francisco is going to celebrate, of course, but I don't know that that's going to if anything, I've learned recently, speaking of the 49ers in real estate, that over
Right.
10, I think there's 10 49ers that have picked Morgan Hill to live in. And so
Oh,
that seems
wow.
to be where all the football players want to live. And I can understand why your dollar goes a little further there. Plus, you can buy some land there that are not necessarily available in San Jose or the Bay Area proper. So it seems to be Morgan Hill is where all the 49ers live. In fact, the former quarterback, Trey Lance, just sold his house for, I want to say, 2.8 million in Morgan Hill. He's a Dallas Cowboy now. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, it seems to be Morgan Hill's the 49er real estate landmark.
I'm assuming you're going to have your golden helmet on Super Bowl Sunday.
I am not a 49er fan. I'm a recovering Raider fan. Um, And so, yeah, once they moved to Vegas, I kind of, gave up on the NFL. But I don't. I like to watch football sometimes just for fun, but I don't root for anybody anymore.
Okay. All
Yeah,
right. Let's come back to the perennial inventory. So inventory is
yeah,
going to remain. It's there's going to be an uptake after Super Bowl Sunday. After Super Bowl. That's what history
typically,
has shown us, typically.
typically, yes.
And if interest rates were to come down in May, do you think that inventory will rise more, or will come up more, or you think
I, th- I
inventory
think it'll
will
be a slow transition because rates aren't just going to drop immediately. It's going to be it took us a year and a half to get up to the sevens and eights. So I think it's going to take another, year or so for the rates to come down to, hopefully the low fives. I'm thinking the low fives, hopefully by the end of the year. And then we'll see where it goes from there. But, um, the Fed rate doesn't directly affect mortgage rates. It's more of an indirect effect. So it affects other things, the stock market, the bond market, various different things that influence mortgage rates. So you're probably going to see, the Fed reduction in May, which will probably lead to mortgage rates, coming down starting in June and then through the summer as things progress. And as long as inflation cooperates and various other factors, CPI report is a big part of that, and whether housing costs, remain flat or even reduce a little bit. That's a big part of the determination of whether rates are going to come down. The prediction is rates will start to come down, but you're probably not going to see an influx in inventory until rates come down because those people that are sitting on a 2.5 or 3% rate don't want to move to go start a 6 or 7% rate somewhere else.
Do you think that rates will ever come back down to 2.5 to 3%?
My crystal ball says no. I
So
think that
if
was an anomaly.
so
Uh,
so the argument here is this: if it's probably never going to come down to that rate, then will the inventory always remain low from now as far as Silicon Valley is concerned?
so
Would
I've
that be
been
a,
in
a fair
I've been in this
argument?
business for 12 years. I'm sorry to interrupt. I've been in this business for 12 years, and inventory's been an issue the whole time. The whole time. Every year, it's always an inventory issue, and it's mostly because, people lock in these really low rates over the years, or there's the builders are not building fast enough. We hear year over year, there's always been the last several years at least a reduction in land purchases from a builder's point of view, and a reduction in permit for building. From a builder's point of view. So when builders are not building and they're not building fast enough to keep up with the demand, that's why we have those inventory issues. All that's available is what's already built and what already exists. So, yeah, we see stuff popping up around, Silicon Valley, these multifamily, high rise type of deals where it's, several hundred units, but it's not nearly enough to keep up with the demand when there's, tens of thousands of people looking for homes and there's only a few hundred homes available on the market.
Last week, a friend of mine, she closed a deal, and the house that she was selling, it was in Santa Clara.
Mhm.
She had 14 bids in a allegedly down market right now.
And that's
And it's
low.
like, how do you wrap your head around, a low number of bids, i.e., 14. I mean,
The Well, when I'm hearing the stories, I was on tour last week and talking to realtors, and they're telling me this week that their house got 25 or 35. I've
holy
heard as
crap!
high as 61 offers. And which tells me that that probably was probably underpriced, but
On purpose.
exactly. So it's hard sometimes to determine. I did an open house at the end of the year in South San Jose that happened to be just a really large lot, an average house on a really large lot, and the realtor priced it what he thought was appropriate based on there wasn't a lot of comps for it, but it still we got over 100 groups through that weekend, 100 groups,
Wow.
and he still ended up with 20 plus offers, and the thing went for $450,000 over asking. So,
Holy crap.
and this was just a 2,000 square foot house, but the lot was a monster, and that's what everybody wanted was the lot because you could do a lot with it. So, but he even underestimated what the property would do, and so I think he listed it at 1.3 and some change, and it went for almost 1.8. So,
Wow.
yeah, it's very interesting. It's hard to estimate. Some properties move very, very fast. You have things on for a couple days and it's gone. And some properties they sit, but I think it's a pricing thing. If you price it appropriately, it's going to move and it's going to move fast.
So let me get this right. When interest rates are high, not, there's a lot of people that would like to buy a house are sitting on the sidelines. They're going like, okay, you know what? I'm going to wait until when interest rates are lower, then I can afford the monthly mortgage.
Mm-hmm.
But if right now with it being so high, with it being around 7%, and you're getting 61 offers, is there any hope for the guy who wants to buy a home? I mean, seriously, is there a slither of hope for him, or her who wants to
100%.
buy a home?
100%. It's not as hard as people think. Yes, it is competitive out there, but the people you choose to work with, if you're a home buyer, the team you put around you, your realtor, your lender, those folks can make a big difference in your experience. So, I have plenty of clients over the years in a very competitive situation who have won where they're not the highest offer, or two, they're using an unconventional loan product. Maybe it's a VA loan or maybe it's a down payment assistance loan, where they still win because the seller and the seller's agent would sometimes rather it go to a specific kind of person. Maybe it's a family, more so than an investor, or it's oftentimes because of the realtor and the lender that they chose have good relationships out there, good reputations out there that helps get deals done. So my clients often win, where we're the third, fourth, fifth highest offer, but we still win because the listing agent trusts me and trusts the realtor on the other side to get this deal done and make it smooth, and everybody wins.
Right. So it's if somebody wants to buy a home, it's also the team that he puts behind him.
100%. It makes the difference of winning on your first offer, or maybe the first takes a couple offers versus writing 10 or 15 offers and still continuing to shop, because every day that you wait, every time that you lose, you're losing money. There's such massive appreciation in this valley, and we're going to see that the next few years, to where if you're not getting in sooner than later, then you're absolutely throwing money out the window. And so it's super duper important to pick the right people. Not all realtors are equal. Not all lenders are equal. And, people often choose realtors based off of their, fee structure. But if you're a buyer, it's the seller right now, at least until the rules change, that pays the buyer's commission, the buyer's agent commission. So from a buyer's perspective, there's really no loss there. You want to get the best realtor possible, to get you to them to represent you. And then from a lender, people often choose lenders based off of rate, and rate doesn't matter in most purchase situations. What matters is winning and closing. If you don't win and if you can't close, then your rate doesn't matter. 0% of zero is still zero. So what matters most is getting in. And like I recently closed a veteran deal where he used a VA loan, which is 0% down, and we still won. And he was the fourth highest offer because the
Wow.
highest offer was $1 million. We came in at 950, and we still won. And this particular veteran was working with a realtor team that had written several offers and lost, and they weren't communicating with me when they were writing offers. However, I switched him over to a different lender team because he was frustrated. On the first offer we wrote, and we worked as a team, that realtor and me worked as a team to get the deal. We won. We won at 950, $50,000 less than the highest offer. And 30 days later, he was a homeowner. So he actually left me a really strong review online that, I told him, I said, look, it matters who you pick. It matters who you work with. And he didn't believe me at first. And then on his first offer he wrote with this new realtor I referred him to, he won. And then 30 days later, he was a homeowner, and he just couldn't believe it that he actually got in and with nothing down and, all that stuff. So it really does matter, the realtor you choose, the lender you choose, whether you're successful in this marketplace.
Right. And who's the team you basically work with? So I'm going to imagine we're in Silicon Valley. There's a whole bunch of people from all around the world that wants to come in here. A lot of them come in here as engineers. They work for Google. They work for Facebook. They work for Cisco, Oracle. Maybe not them. Maybe the more fancy companies like Nvidia right now.
Sure.
So let's just say this guy comes in, and then he's been renting like 2-3 years. And he's sick and tired of paying rent. So, I mean, you get zero, well, other than the month that you paid rent for, after that, you get zero value from that.
Right.
So the question here is this: if to that person who's been renting for a couple of years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, and he's sick and tired of just paying somebody else's mortgage, do you think in this market today, with the interest rates where it is, it's a good time to buy, or forget the buying, just save your money and just rent, continue to rent it, which is a better option?
I think if you're ready, there's no time like the present, right? There's the old George Washington cliche, right? When's the best time to plant a tree? Well, it was 20 years ago. When's the next best time to plant a tree? That's today, right? So
Right.
if you're ready, if you feel like you can, handle the payment and, you're financially in a position to do it, absolutely. Now is the best time. And over the next couple months is the best time to buy that we're going to see financially for the next several years. Because again, without the inventory, prices are continuing to climb like crazy. We had a little bit of a lull because of the economic situation created by the pandemic, but I think the Bay Area comes out of that probably the quickest of all, and we're already seeing still a very, very competitive market in what's considered a down market, right? So yeah, if you're in a position, now is the best time, but
The,
you have to decide that for yourself.
the key thing to buying a property right now versus renting, what would be the top 2-3 things that you need to look at?
Income. Obviously, having a job, whether it's a W-2 type of job or if it's a 1099, if you're self-employed, those kinds of factors, have different guidelines and requirements. Credit is the next thing you want to be looking at, making sure that your credit is good enough. I mean, you can still have fairly low FICO scores and still get in. But the better your credit, the better terms you're going to get. And then, of course, having down payment, closing costs, reserves, that kind of thing, in terms of assets to make sure that you're not putting yourself into a position where you're maybe house rich and cash poor, or unable to support what you need to support.
So, in short, would I be wrong to say this? The first and most important thing is to look at your ability to borrow,
Right.
and that would you need your credit score, you need your income, and so on and so forth. And the second thing that will come into play would be this thing, cash flow. To know your cash flow, and making sure you can make the mortgage payments on a monthly basis. Would this be a good summary of that?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Income, credit, and ability to pay is really the key, right? So there are very low down even no down products out there that can help you, but obviously that comes with a higher payment versus having the down payment. Now, the Fannie and Freddie changed the rules last year on conventional loans, where people with less down actually get better terms than people with more down in a lot of cases. So if
Oh,
you're doing
wow.
20%, you're actually going to have probably a higher rate in most cases on a conventional loan aspect, which is anything up to this year $1,150,000 loan amount. You're going to, if you're doing 20% down, you're actually going to have a higher rate than somebody doing 5% down. So, that's something to think about and exactly explore with your lender when you're looking at your different options as to what your down payment is going to be and really what your payment is going to be.
So, what's the difference right now? Having said Freddie and Mac, Freddie Mae and Freddie Mac, you mentioned that they changed the rules last year. So, what's the difference between working with, let's just say, a Chase, a Citibank, Wells Fargo, to work the mortgage of the mortgages that these banks provide versus a person like you that represents not just one lender, but a myriad of a whole bunch of different lenders?
Sure. So the big banks all have their own products, whether it's conventional loans or even jumbo loans. Here in the Bay Area, most fall into that jumbo loan range. But for somebody starting out, maybe it's a first-time buyer or a condo, a small home, that kind of thing, it can still fall into that conventional range. They are the big banks are direct lenders, and so they can set their own rates and their own terms. Oftentimes, they have stricter guidelines so that if you fall within those guidelines, then great, you're going to get a pretty good deal. However, if you don't fall within that box, then there's not much they can do for you. So oftentimes we see, and I see personally, where somebody's gone to the Wells Fargos or the B of A's or whatever. They initially approve them, but then discover something that makes the purchase prohibitive, and now that person is no longer eligible for that particular bank's loans. So they come to me oftentimes, and I'm able to find a solution that gets them what they need. As a broker, I have hundreds and hundreds of different options out there and a knowledge of these different products and how to use them so that I can creatively structure loans to help people who may not necessarily fall within that big bank box, or maybe they have some other challenges like down payment or credit or a previous history of issues in the past where it's prohibitive that they can't necessarily go to the big bank or they don't have the products at the big bank that would support this client best. So that's where I come in oftentimes, is either saving somebody's deal who's gone to the big bank and fallen through, or giving them a solution from the get-go that suits their needs more adequately than what the big bank can do for them.
Cool. With all the applications for mortgages coming, past coming on your desk every day, where is the area in Silicon Valley you see most activity happening right now?
Oh, that's tough. There's different areas for different reasons, right? So Sunnyvale, obviously the 94087, 94089 is really popular with the tech community because of proximity to work as well as the level of
It's
schools.
it's it's like right smack in the middle of Google and Apple. I mean, it's like 5 minutes each way you get to one. Another 5 minutes you get to NVIDIA. So, and this is why Sunnyvale as a city in the entire uh, all of California was the fastest growing in terms of price. Real estate in Sunnyvale is.
Yep.
Will I be wrong in saying that?
No, you're absolutely right. And Sunnyvale, I grew up there personally, and it was once upon a time a lot of orchards, cherry orchards, apricot orchards, that kind of thing. And so to see how quickly that area has changed and been developed is interesting. And Sunnyvale is known for the tech and the schools, and that's why people live there. And so They want their kids to go to these, nines and tens versus the, sixes and sevens or whatever in different areas. So it's people are really paying for the proximity to work, like Apple, like you mentioned, Facebook, like you mentioned, that kind of thing, versus and then having a top rated school that their kid can go to or kids can go to. So you're really paying for some really expensive dirt there.
Let's just say if you cannot afford a place like Palo Alto or Sunnyvale,
Uh-huh.
what is the next best place to look at if you want to buy something, but if you can't afford these places and you don't have a choice but to accept your fate or do the commute, on good 101 and yeah, just pay a bunch of money on toll. Where would be a good place to look at?
So the Cambrian Park area, which is where I actually live, is probably the next best to the Sunnyvale/Cupertino area. It's
Wow.
often referred to as Cupertino adjacent because you still get the good schools, but it's not nearly as pricey. Cupertino and parts of Sunnyvale are $2 and $3 million houses, no matter what you do, whereas Cambrian can be more like a 1.2 to a 1.8 and still, be somewhat affordable for a single family. And you still get the top rated schools. So you can still get the eights and nines and that kind of thing for Lee High School or Branham High School or, some of these other, middle schools and elementary schools that are top rated as well.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. I'm gonna ask you one more question. If you had to, with all your years in Silicon Valley, if you had to give like three of the deepest, darkest inside scoop of real estate in Silicon Valley, can you think of any? I mean, is there like a secret sauce to Silicon Valley's real estate? Any secret scoop? Anything? The top three things that are not common, people don't talk about. Can you? Yeah.
I think picking picking the team around you to buy a home here is essential and will make a big difference in how many offers you have to write and ultimately how much you have to pay. If you don't really want to compete, working with a realtor who has a knowledge of off-market properties can be very valuable because you'll often find property that has not hit the market that the public doesn't know about, and that can obviously be a very advantageous solution to home shopping in this market. And you know, buy don't rent when you can buy. If you can buy a home, even if it's a condo or something small to start with, why pay somebody else's mortgage, perennially than when you could be making your own and kind of stepping up in the world. So I have lots of solutions. I have lots of ability to help people who maybe don't have the down payment or maybe don't have the best of credit or whatever the case, but still want to try and become a homeowner. I can help you. There's lots of down payment assistance. There's lots of
Cool.
different programs out there to help people buy in this area.
Cool. And there's also a calculator to show you rent versus buy, and over a period of years, you can see how much equity you would gain. I'll leave that link in this video. Yeah, after this. So
Perfect.
yeah, anything else you'd like to say?
Thanks for having me, Charlie. I really appreciate you asking me
Thank
to do this, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help you or your people.
Thank you so much, Russell. Thanks for being, on my podcast. I really, really appreciate it. There you have it, guys. Thanks for watching this. I really appreciate that. If you stayed until now, and if you want to buy, if you want to sell, give me a call. I'm a realtor in Silicon Valley. It was really nice having you on the show, and more importantly, I'm looking forward to meeting you. Thank you.